Hello, I am Eric. Last time I posted a video, I was talking about how I was arrested when I was 17 for attempted murder and aggravated kidnapping. When I was 17 years old, I was locked up. I went to prison. I spent 11 years there. I didn't get out till I was 28. My last video, I was talking about how I was adjudicated. In other words, they were going to try me as an adult, and I was being transferred from a juvenile facility to an adult facility. I'm going to get into what happened after that. What was it like to be a juvenile in an adult facility? However, let me first say a couple things. I want to thank all of my subscribers. I want to thank anybody, whether you are subscribed or not, for watching my videos and giving me your time. I appreciate that. Another thing, I don't usually ask for likes. I don't ask for you to subscribe. However, that model is going to change. Why? Well, I'm not trying to get rich off this. I'm not trying to make money on YouTube. That's not my thing. That's not why I do this. It would be cool to do that. It'd be cool to make money off of it, but it's not my goal. My goal is to help people. So, when you click that like button, it tells YouTube that this is relevant content. It shows it to more people. I want my story to get out there. I want people to be impacted by what happened to me, what I did, what the consequences of my actions were, what the prison system's like. I want people to benefit from my experiences. I want people to think because of my experiences. I want to affect someone's life in some way because I don't want my incarceration to be for nothing. That is why I'm doing these videos. So, if you hit that like button, if you hit the subscribe button, YouTube's going to show this video to more people, and we're going to raise awareness of our prison system, what's going on in our prison system, our criminal justice system, at-risk teens. That's all important. I don't know how many of you got kids or might have kids or are kids, but I'll tell you something. Going to prison at 17, getting locked up at 17, that ain't no joke. Going down the wrong road can cause you a lot of problems. Now, that is out of the way, we're going to get into this. So when I was 17, kidnapped a guy, shot him. I had reason to believe that he was a pedophile. And as I said, I talked about that in another video. If you want, I'll put a thing up somewhere. You can go check it out. There's me and two other guys with me who took this guy out in the woods. I pulled the trigger. I'm not saying what I did was right. I'm not trying to justify my actions. I'm telling you what I did. Alright? So I went to the juvenile facility. Kind of explained what that was like in my last video. I was adjudicated. That means that they were trying me as an adult. Now the big thing was, if they tried me as an adult, I could spend a lot more time in prison. Which at this point, I was pretty sure that I was going to prison. My second day in, my lawyer, my court-appointed attorney came in and said, hey, I can get you a real good deal. If you take a plea, I could probably get you 20 years. That was a good deal. Of course, I didn't take it. I kind of cussed at him, told him to leave. But that's what I was looking at. Now, once you're adjudicated, you can be tried as an adult. You can be convicted as an adult, sentenced as an adult. That means you're looking at a lot more time. And after my adjudication hearing, after they ruled that I could be tried as an adult, they took me back to the juvenile detention center that I had been housed at since the day of my arrest. So far, about a month had passed, and they took me back there, and then I had to wait for transport. I think it was only a few hours later that the one of the sheriff's cars from county came and picked me up to take me down to Anderson County, which is where I caught my case, so that they could put me in the adult jail there. So they picked me up, ride down there the whole way, kind of just numb. It was a rough experience. These videos are kind of hard to make because I don't like talking about this stuff. I really don't. I know I have kind of a monotone thing going on, but that's just conditioning. I promise you, it's not that I don't have strong emotions about what I'm talking about. It's just that it's hard to talk about, and I spent 11 years in the can, kind of been conditioned not to show a lot of emotion. So I get to this jail, this adult facility, and I was very familiar with it. The place where I'm from is a very small area, not densely populated at all. I think we have maybe 7,000 people in the whole county. And this town where the jail is located is probably the biggest town in the county, and I imagine there's less than 5,000 people there. I would actually guess about 3,000 people live there. So I was familiar with this jail. And it was an old jail. I think it was built in the 1920s or 1930s. Old brick building, not very big. You walked inside, and they had the sheriff's offices right there. But you go to your left, and there was some bars. You go through these bars, and basically that's what happened. They led me into the building. They led me over to the left where these bars were, a little room, and they strip searched me, which this was not my first time being strip searched, because when I first got arrested I was strip searched, and after that, just about every time I would leave the facility and come back, I would get strip searched. So if I left the JDC for whatever reason, came back, strip search. So they strip search me, and they take me upstairs. And this jail was broken into 2 blocks, essentially. You had a block on the north side of the building, and then you had a cell block on the south side of the building. And also on the south side of the building, they had a recreation yard. Very small, fenced in, no weights or anything out there. It's just a little pad of concrete with a fence around it. And they would allow people to smoke out there at that time. And so I go upstairs, and when you get there, there's a hallway that runs north to south on the east end of the 2 blocks. So it basically made a U shape. You had the hallway, and then you had both blocks coming off that hallway. However, there were kind of like bulkhead style doors at each end of those blocks, so the blocks couldn't interact with each other. So you walked in, and it was like a hallway, and on your left you had windows. You could overlook the rec yard, and to your right you had bars and cells. The front of your cell was old school iron bars, like you see in some old prison movie, like Shawshank Redemption or something like that. The first cell on the block was a big community style cell. There were 4 bunks in there. I think there was 4 bunks. There was a shower. There was a table and a TV. That's where everyone would gather for their meals and stuff like that. And then they had individual cells with just one bunk further on down the block. And they led me to a cell all the way at the back. One of my co-defendants was in the other block. They put us in separate blocks. They didn't want us to be in the same place. So, one of my co-defendants was 18 already when we committed the crime. So, he had already been at that county jail. To be honest, Anderson County Jail, as far as places I've been, was pretty comfortable. There's a couple things I didn't like about it. It was dirty, like the water tasted real bad. The building was run down. From what one of the jailers told me, they had pipes being held together with duct tape. And, you know, it wasn't air conditioned. So it was hot. It was very hot. This was the summertime. So it was very hot. Kind of run down. Water tasted like rust. You know, that was pretty much the negatives of it. By and large, it was a real nice jail. They wouldn't let me smoke because I was only 17, which seemed kind of odd to me at the time, that I could be charged as an adult, but I couldn't smoke like one. However, what really sucked about Anderson County is the reality of everything began to set in. When I was in the JDC, everything was on a strict schedule. Had to get up first thing in the morning, clean toilets, sweep and mop the day room, standing count. We're talking 4:30 in the morning. Anderson County, you were treated like an adult. You could get up when you wanted. You could go to bed when you wanted. Even if you were in your cell, you know, no one was going to make you stay up. No one was going to make you do push-ups. No one was going to make you clean. It was up to you to take initiative to do that. And when I first got there, I slept. But soon after waking up, I had guys coming and trying to talk to me. There's this one guy, Carl, that I already knew a little bit. I didn't like him much, but I already knew him a little bit. And he showed me something they had hanging on the wall. It was a sentencing grid. And he was asking me about my charges, because we were trying to figure out how much time I was looking at. He said, you know, what are you looking at? And I said, I don't know. I have no idea. They're telling me all these different things. I have no idea. And I had charges racked up against me. And I also had a pending case from a fight that I had gotten into with my dad. And I would have been sentenced on that case before this one. So I had no idea what I was looking at. And Carl said, well, let's go take a look at this sentencing grid. In Kansas, they have a grid that they base your sentence off of when you're convicted. And that grid is made up of 2 factors: your prior history and the severity level of the crime. The more convictions you have, the more time you can get. And so this grid is basically a bunch of boxes. And on one side of the grid, it has a severity level. Like row 1, severity level 1, row 2, severity level 2, row 3. Okay? That's on one side of the grid. On the other side of the grid, criminal history. So you have, you know, 1 felony, 2 felony, 3 felonies, so forth and so on. So where those 2 points line up, that's what's going to tell you, you know, how much time you're going to do. So Carl said, come here and let's look at the sentencing grid. And so we were lining stuff up. And he said, "Oh, man, you're an A box. In Kansas, that's the last thing you want to hear." At that time, I didn't realize that. But that is the last thing I wanted to hear. Because an A box, if I remember right, you're looking at about 653 months. I don't know how much time that is. We're going to say roughly 60 years. Well, actually, probably a lot more than that. But I'm not doing math this early in the morning. Okay. And I said, well, he said that they were trying for an upward departure. Then another guy popped up and he said, oh, that means that they can charge you for more time than what's on that box. They can double it, which is what the prosecutor was trying to do. I found out later. He was looking at, you know, trying to get an upward departure eventually when I was convicted and trying to double that time. So you do the math on that. 653 months times 2. It's 1,306 months. And that is just for one of my charges. I had a stack of charges against me. So at that time, I realized that I was looking at spending the rest of my life in prison. 17 years old. Not out of high school yet. It was my junior year in high school. I had no idea what I was going to be doing. I was thinking about going to UTI or something like that. I wanted to be an automotive technician. I wanted to be a mechanic like my dad. And then I was looking at going to prison for the rest of my life, never seeing my father again outside of an institutional setting, never seeing my mother again outside of an institutional setting. That's what happened when I was adjudicated. And so the guy who was looking at the grid with me saw the numbers on there. He said, oh man, you're fucked. He says, you're not ever getting out. And he went and he sat down on his bunk, started watching the TV. Everybody in that cell, that community cell, fell silent. I turned around and I walked back to the end of the cell block. I went to my cell, laid down in bed, rolled over, I faced the wall, and I cried my ass off. The rest of the time I was there, I felt like I was numb. Completely numb. I didn't care what happened to me anymore. I didn't really feel like I had a purpose. Didn't feel like anything mattered. Coffee. It's real early in the morning for this shit. So, I was only in that jail for a couple weeks after that. But like I said, after that I was kind of just numb. I felt like I was walking around in a daze. I'd go out to the rec yard, do what I had to do out there, just sat around basically, ate my meals, which food at that jail was not bad. They didn't have a kitchen, so we got all our food from a diner across the street. We're talking about apple pie, real bacon and eggs for breakfast. It was good. It was good. And they were going to tear that jail down. So they were eventually going to send everybody from that jail to another facility. However, prior to that happening, my other co-defendant, the one who was under 18 years of age, was adjudicated, and they wanted to put him in that jail. However, there was only 2 cell blocks, and they had one of us in each cell block already. So they decided to transfer me out. They sent me to Allen County, which was a completely different jail. Completely different type of jail. Still an adult facility. However, this was a modern jail. This was a modern facility, high security. It was what we call a cookie cutter facility. They have these facilities that are made by these big companies. They have a template, I guess you could say, kind of a general structure of the jail, a general design that they stick with. It works, and so they keep it. And Allen County is quite a bit bigger than Anderson County, population-wise. I wouldn't say they're significantly bigger, but they're big enough. So they transfer me there, and first thing they do is they put me in a holding tank for 24 to 48 hours while they're waiting for a bed. So, oh yeah, and then there was a strip search. They did that. That jail was completely different, though. I walked in, and it was air conditioned. They strip searched me, and they put me in this holding tank. And when you first get there, when you walk into the booking area, there's these big electric fingerprinting machines. There's mirrored glass everywhere, so you can't see what's behind the glass or who's looking at you. These big steel doors with solenoid locks. Every time they open, they make a loud ass buzzing noise and a big bang when they close. And it was all very clean and very polished, very sanitized. You felt like you were in an institutional setting, like some twisted version of a hospital or like a lab rat or something, like you were caged for real. So I went and I spent 24 to 48 hours in this holding tank. The holding tank was an observation cell, meaning that there were cameras on it. It was completely concrete, and the glass on the cell was mirrored. Like two walls were all windows, all glass. Kind of reminds me of Hannibal, except for I couldn't see out because all of the glass was mirrored, which is kind of disorienting. You're thinking about living in a very small room, a room maybe the size of a bathroom, a very small bathroom, for 48 hours, and having 2 of the walls in that room be mirrors. It's weird. The other thing about that room, they gave me one blanket, I think. They gave me one blanket, and that room had 2 AC vents that were pumping in cold air constantly. So I was very cold. And I didn't have all of my property. I think it took them 24 hours to give me my property, which basically consisted of a Bible and some letters and some canteen, some commissary. And So, the other thing, one of the walls that was made out of glass went to the control room. In other words, the control room was right against the wall of the cell where I was staying, and that mirrored glass, that was so the control room could look directly into my cell. And the weird thing about that is I could hear what was going on in the control room. Sort of. The control room, they had 2 officers in there, and they would run doors, watch the cameras, talk to people on the radio, stuff like that. And the wall and glass was thick enough that I couldn't really make out what they were saying, but I could hear them talking. And I could hear them laughing. And it was really odd because I couldn't tell if they were talking about me or laughing about me or what. And it really messes with your mind. The other thing is, you got the control room right there. The toilet faced the control room. And there was a camera right over the toilet. So, you knew that when you did your business, there was like 2 sets of eyeballs on you. It was weird. Another one of those dehumanization things. There are certain things that we take for granted that are just human things. Having privacy when you use a bathroom. Some people don't care about that. Not having to take your clothes off when you come home to make sure you don't have weapons. Having the right to do what you want with your clothes. We kind of take that for granted. Having someone to just tell you, hey, I'm going to strip search you at any time and you don't have a say in it, that sucks. It's one of those things that it's dehumanizing. Now, this video was run on a little bit longer than I expected. I didn't get as far as I wanted to. However, the next one I'm going to tell you more about Allen County Jail, what it was like, what happened when I got out of that lockdown, that 48-hour lockdown. They put me in a pod with a bunch of adults. We're going to get into that. So, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And I will see you next time. You have a great day.
Rage, radiation.